The next item is the report of me. And there's not a lot to report that you don't already know. I have heard a lot of good feedback about this meeting itself, and that's very gratifying. I've heard at least as much good feedback about the reception last night, and that's really gratifying too. It was a lot of fun. This past year has been busy. It's been, I think, productive, and I just look forward to bigger and better things into the future. We obviously have talked a lot about visioning PM&R Bold. The visioning is really over and done with now. That was a up to 18-month process that culminated in the new strategic plan and the new vision and mission statements. And we've gone through these before as well. There were really thousands of physiatrists who had been involved in the visioning process. And well over 1,000 with direct, not just hitting a website or hitting a link, but direct feedback to us. And if there's anything about this whole bold process that I think is the most important and most critical and most fulfilling, is that this is not just some old people sitting around the Board of Governors table saying this is the way we think things should be. This was all of you and physiatrists out there, totally grassroots. And so what came out of that, all that data, again, was not just us sitting around. And so when we say, here's what we think the direction the field should be going, this or that, or these ideas, that's not just us saying that. To me, that was the most important part of all this, that this really came from physiatrists. And you've seen these vision statements as well, with the highlighted words that I think are the most important. Physiatrists are the essential medical experts in evaluation, diagnosis, and management of the things we treat. We're indispensable leaders in directing rehab and recovery and in prevention. And we are vital in optimizing outcomes and function early and throughout the continuum of patient care. Remember, these are vision statements. We were asked to think about if everything were exactly the way you wanted, how would it be? How would it look? And this is how it would look. This is not the way things are yet, but everything that comes after a vision statement is what hopefully will turn things into these becoming reality with help from all of you. You've heard us say that very deliberately we have made the transition, we're in the process of making the transition from a largely transactional organization, you want some CME, you got to fulfill your MOC criteria, et cetera, to one that looks out for, advocates for, and elevates the entire specialty of PM&R, not just the academy. Naturally, it's a two-way street. If there is no health in the entire specialty, then the academy will wither. And I think vice versa. If there were no such thing as an academy, then the field would suffer significantly. AAPM&R leads the advancement of physiatry's impact throughout healthcare. So that's a pretty strong statement, but that's what the academy wants to do, and it's throughout healthcare. And again, for the betterment of the entire specialty. To repeat the academy goals, transform the specialty, you've seen that statement already. For us to prepare members for success so that all members are equipped throughout their career to succeed. And succeed means many different things to different physiatrists. Probably for all 10,000 physiatrists, succeed means something a lot of overlap, but the specifics might be different for every single one. We've talked a lot about dynamic engagement. And so the slide, a few slides ago, with a big chart of how many people were involved in the BOLD process. Some of them read our emails, clicked on a website, and that's terrific, 600 or 6,500 people. And then those 1,000 plus were more engaged by writing to us and by emailing us and raising their voices about what they thought was important. That kind of dynamic engagement is exactly what we need from, ideally, everybody, but certainly a lot of people. And the greatness, I think, of this BOLD initiative is because of that dynamic engagement, and we need it to continue. And then we can't forget the organizational strength to enhance the strength of the academy, the resources, not just financial, but intellectual, physician volunteers, just everything, the office staff, to make sure that it itself, those resources are optimized to make sure that the entire specialty succeeds and thrives. We have done the top half of this slide, and now we're advancing PM&R Bold. So the purpose of that is to transform the specialty to align with those vision statements we saw before. This includes at least, so far, 4 specific models that came out of the Bold process, 2 in MSK, 2 in rehab, but we've already, it says future, but we already are exploring cancer, peds, pain as priority next models to think about. Then there will be think tanks. These are content experts in each of these model areas who will flesh out a broader, more specific, maybe mini strategic plan, if you will. And then the learning collaboratives, at least in the models, in the thinking we have now for these models, each of them will have a learning collaborative. That will be the organ that gets down to each physiatrist. And if it happens to be something about inserting the rehab physician earlier in the continuum of care, how to do that. How to make yourself a more potent voice locally in your own medical center, your own hospital, et cetera. So each of these will have a learning collaborative. Some might overlap. It might not be one for one in terms of number, but the outcome will be specific things that people can do, can grab onto to make themselves better leaders back home, again, which collectively will raise the entire specialty. Organizational relationships is something I've been quite focused on the past couple, 3 years, and all of these are ongoing in terms of our dialogues and where we are and where we want to be with the AAP, with the American Board. We just had a leadership meeting this morning with the American Board leaders, the foundation, and others. You might have heard me say a couple days ago that the Congress, ACRM, is sort of back in our viewfinder. So this is very important. It is, I think we all hope and think, it's critical, very important for all of these organizations to thrive if we have our eye on the big prize, which is the entire specialty of PM&R. Now, every year there are folks who are at the end of their time of volunteering, and I think it's important to recognize them in particular. These are folks who are the leaders. These are not folks necessarily yet who are outgoing, but there you have some who are outgoing. The awards committee, Peter Esselman; conflict advisory, Alberto Esquenazi; corporate relations, John Finoff; nominating committee, Greg Warzowicz; and practice preparedness, Mike Lupinacci. Michelle Gittler is outgoing as the chair of the finance committee for the board because she will no longer be treasurer, but you just approved her to be on the presidential line. And John Finoff will no longer be secretary because you just approved him to be treasurer, so he's outgoing in terms of the audit committee chair. Other committees, and Amy, who's also coming on the board, is outgoing, therefore, as performance and quality metrics committee chair. QPPR, innovative, so Peter Esselman and Stu Glassman are outgoing for the innovative payment, the IPPM committee. Steve Kirschblum, in terms of the councils, the CNS council is the outgoing chair. Katarzyna Ibanez is the outgoing education, vice chair of communication for GMR. And Kevin Vincent for MSK is outgoing as chair. Rosalind Nguyen as chair of membership, and Ethan Colliver as chair of communication. For pain and neuromuscular, Marty Grayboys is outgoing chair. Eric Shaw for vice chair of communication. And PEDS, developmental disabilities, Richard Davis is outgoing vice chair of education. The FIT, the Physiatrist and Training Council Board, Sunny Sharma is not listed there as outgoing, but I believe he is, right? He is outgoing, yeah, so that should be there. This is the rest of the people on that committee. Now, there are about 1 million of you guys who have done work for the Academy. Journal editors, reviewers, contributors, Knowledge Now volunteers, which really is turning out to be a very important piece of what we do. Liaisons, external representatives, the 10 graduating and the 10 incoming leadership program fellows, all of this volunteer activity, obviously, for everything you've done over the past year or 2 years. I very much appreciate having been able to serve as your president for the last year, and I will be in Orlando next year, so you're not quite done with me yet, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.